Alright, Monday, we're going to do a little bonus video here. So the Model A, I get a lot of questions about this, not so much on YouTube, but in person. So this one does have an oil pressure line that goes to a gauge, and if you looked at the gauge, I'd show it to you, but you're not going to be able to see the gauge numbers, but I think it's like 1 through 30, and that's it. Model A's don't make lots of oil pressure, so people who put gauges in, you really kind of start freaking yourself out. I did a little experiment on mine. Mine's a Model A engine, and cold, you'll get about, I don't know, 15, maybe 20. At idle, when you're revving down the road, you might get, 25, 30, but once it gets warm, it's 0. I mean, unless you're really screeching it down the road, and you might get 5, and people freak out. Well, that's kind of how these are. These are not pressure fed. So what you're really getting here is your oil pump is an oil pan. It's driven off the cam. Cam is right here. Oil pump shoots the oil up the shaft, and in this housing here is where the shaft is too, and there's the drive that drives the distributor. So all you're really getting is the pressure that you build up in this little housing from here to here. And then the oil just comes out, and it goes down this tube, and it comes out right there. And you're thinking to yourself, well, what's the restriction? Well, there is no restriction other than that tube and the little bit of restriction that's in this boss in here where the oil travels up and comes this way. That's it. So, yeah, if you get 50 pounds of oil pressure here, yeah, all you're doing is blowing a lot of oil out this way. Probably gonna, you're not gonna gain nothing. So how does the engine get oil? Well, if you look there, there's a hole right there. That goes down to the first main bearing, and I think it also deviates over to the first cam bearing. And there's a hole in the front, and I should have grabbed my flashlight, but there's a dam in here. And that's basically sets the oil height. And then the oil spills around here. The way the cover is made, get the cover over here. Cover is not flat. Cover is concaved, and you see this little guy here. So what happens is the oil comes around this little divider here. So if you look in the gasket, you'll see the oil flows around here, and it fills up this galley, and then back there's the hole for the center main bearing, and I believe it goes over to the center cam bearing. And the back of the engine, and this one you can't see, but it's back there. That one goes to the back main bearing and the cam bearing. That's it. It's just free flow as this thing fills up, and that oil flows into the bearings, and that is how it works. And then the rods, if anybody's taking old Briggs and Stratton apart, and you got the little dipper, and the dipper goes around, there's a tray in there, and it scoops the oil up. That's how the rods lubricate. So as the oil falls back into the engine, it goes in the dipper tray, and the dipper picks up and lubricates the rods, and obviously it flings the oil up and lubricates your cylinders and your skirts and your wrist pins, and that's why it's called a splash lubricating system. Model B motors, once we get that far in life, I'll show you what that's all like. Those do have a pressurized main system, kinda, but it's better than this. So there's actually a galley that comes across here, and that's pressurized, and then that goes to the 3 tubes that go to the mains. But the A motor is just basically gravity. So having an oil pressure gauge really isn't gonna do anything other than when it's cold, you'll kind of see that it's doing something. But like I said, mine, when it's hot, it doesn't make any oil pressure. I know it's moving the oil, but it just doesn't make any restriction in this little part here. So that's it. But I got that cover off only because it was leaking, or it looks like it was leaking pretty bad down this side. So I figured I'd get that off, see how much gunk was in there, and actually it's really clean. So that's good. At least someone was putting good oil in it. Like I said, I'm sure this engine was rebuilt, but it's been a while ago, so it's got some miles on it. So I'm going to clean that up, get that cover cleaned up. I dug up a gasket, we'll get that resealed. Probably clean up the side of the block a little bit, and there's an oil drain tube that also goes on here too. Just bolts to that cover, and it goes down to the bottom of the block here. So the excess oil in this galley, as it builds up to a certain height, goes right down that tube and into the oil pan. So, and there's, like I said, there's a hole in front here. It spills into the cam gear, lubricates the cam gears. Very primitive, you know. It's just a big Briggs & Stratton motor. That's what I keep telling everybody. It's a 4-cylinder Briggs. All right, back to work.